I figured it out. Oh my gosh, one of these days, I'm gonna get this YouTube live thing like right on the first try. 3952 Mom, I am here. It took a minute. It is digital learning day here. I have preschoolers. It's my least favorite day of the month. So I am thrilled to have you here. Jeannie, I don't have a romper on. My midriff is showing. So clearly it's not too cold here, but it was in the 50s this morning. So I'm dressed a little bit more user-friendly for my Canadians who are still suffering under ice and snow. Oh, good morning. Good morning. Judith, congrats on changing your username. Wonderful. Oh my goodness, Marianne. Hello. Okay. Let me get this pulled up over here so that I can see your comments without having to lean over. And then we're going to get to stitching. Let's see if I've figured this out. Let's see. Is it on my channel? Here we are. Ha-ha! All right. Oh, at least I feel like I've done something right today. I'm just going to take a few moments to breathe. In fact, you know what? I invite you to take a few moments to breathe with me. We're going to start our quilt along momentarily, but just in case any of you are having a morning like I have had, let us breathe. Ready? Whatever chaos has happened in your morning, you are exactly where you need to be right now. Whatever chaos is happening around you, just in case the mean voices in your head have been running amok, the mean voices in my head have been running amok this morning. Okay, listen, I'm going to speak some truth over all of us. You are a rock star. You are incredible. You are a valuable part of this community. You are a capable human. Okay, so welcome rock stars and capable humans. I hope you had an opportunity this week to finish piecing your units. Some of you who have done quilt alongs with me in the past may be slightly astonished to see that I actually got all my units done. I'm so proud of me. There's a reason I have a lot of projects half done around here, but I really loved taking the time to get these stitched up. And I'm excited to teach you guys about webbing blocks today. All right. Let's see. If you have a question about an order from me, I need to be able to look you up by your email. So please email hello@stringandstory.com. Okay. And we will look up your order. We will look up your tracking information. This is part of why we do flat rate shipping. Is so that we can have tracking. Okay, so I'm happy to look that up, but email me at hello@stringandstory.com. Wonderful. Helen, I'm so excited that you're off to get your second shot. Marie, husband has last chemo today. See, we have things to celebrate. Now, while I'm getting myself set up over here, I want each of you guys to drop something worth celebrating in the comments. All right, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to take today by the horns. Y'all know, if you've been stitching with me for a hot second, that anything we are doing around here, you know, is like 45% quilting, 55% mindset. All right. So we're gonna take our mindset game by the horns here, and we are going to celebrate some stuff. Okay. All right. I'm gonna continue scooting y'all back. Sorry, I didn't mean for the cord to tug quite like that. I want to make sure that y'all can see at least a good bit of my sewing space here, because I'm going to lay these blocks out. All right. So this is week 3 of the Star Bright Quilt Along. There should be a link in the caption of this video, but because I'm still figuring out this YouTube live thing, if there's not, stringandstory.com/starbrightQAL will take you to the landing page with the schedule, a link to get the Winter Hexagon Minis pattern collection. It looks kind of like this. There's actually an updated cover, but it'll give you an idea. And we are making the throw size quilt together. Now, today we're going to focus on making just one block, because I'm going to walk you through step by step how to web a block. Now, if you've been following along over on Instagram, first, there's a little surprise giveaway happening on Instagram that I decided to do very spontaneously on Sunday. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the Star Bright Quilt Along, but I have an AccuQuilt Go Me that I'm giving away. So there's a reel about that, but the way to enter the giveaway is I asked all y'all to be sharing your favorite piecing tips. And it has resulted in a treasure trove of information about how to piece our blocks, piece our quilts. And one of the things that came up that I was so excited to see was this concept of webbing. Now, you can web units, you can web blocks, you can web quilt tops. We're going to use a block as an example today because I think it'll give you guys a good idea of how this works. All right, let me check on these comments. The snow missed you. That makes me so happy. Yes. Oh, and it's sunny in British Columbia. Love that. Celebrate each day that God keeps me and my family healthy. Amen. Is my head still cut off? I think I fixed it. It was definitely cut off for a minute there. All right. Good morning, Deanna. I'm so sorry it's freezing out in Wyoming. My heavens. All right. So here's the concept with block webbing. Keep those good things coming in the comments. We need that high vibe energy today. This allows us basically to put our units, our blocks together in such a way that we're not doing a lot of thread breaking, and it helps our seams line up. It's also just faster. All right. So I'm going to lay out my Star Bright block here. It's going to be a little crunch, so you're not going to quite be able to see every piece of it, but you'll be able to see enough to get the idea. Okay. So I'm laying out these units. This is a 3x3 grid. That's part of what makes this a good block to show you guys how to do this. Because then you just repeat the process I'm going to show you for however many columns and rows your quilt or block has, okay? All right, so there's a unit that goes here, but we're going to put on that side of my presser foot. So all our little extra accent triangles, they go in the outside edges of this, okay? Whoop, stay. And here's what happens with webbing. So something that I love about webbing is if we have this on a design wall, you can actually stack your blocks up. So essentially what happens is you sew your first two columns together. So you're about to see me do that with these two columns. You leave all of that string piecing connected, okay? Then you simply add your next column. So what this means with a 3x3 grid is it's just going to come together pretty fast. But if you have a whole quilt on your design wall, what this means is you can take the whole thing down off the design wall and have it in a stack, and you know the order it stays in. Because what happens is you take the first block from column 1, the first block from column 2, the second block from column 1, the second block from column 2, the third block from column 1, the third block from column 2, the fourth block from column 1, the fourth block from column 2. Okay, so let's say this is like a 4x4 situation. Then you would go down row 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then down row 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You now have a stack. Okay, so when you put that stack next to your machine, you would take the first two blocks, because that is block 1 from column 1, block 1 from column 2, and you would sew them together. You would take the next two blocks, sew them together. Next two blocks, sew them together. Next two blocks, sew them together. Then for the next 4 blocks, you would take that chain that you just made, right, of 2 blocks connected 4 times, and you would take what is now going to be your 9th block in the stack, and you sew it to the first row, which was block 1, column 1, block 1, column 2, and now we're at block 1, column 3. And you add column 3 all the way down. Take that off. So we now have a 3x3 little half connected situation. And then you can add block 4. Okay, so that's the concept of where we're going. I'm going to demonstrate that now with this block. All right. Your fruit trees are in bloom. You got your square and a squares done. Adding squares like you're closing a book. Yes, I love it. Okay, so ready? I'm going to show you. Block 1, column 1. Block 1, column 2. Block 2, column 1. Block 2, column 2. Block 3, column 1. Block 3, column 2. Now I'm going to hold these over here like this so that I can reach around. Block 1, column 3. Block 2, column 3. block 3, column 3. All right. You see how I stacked those up? Any questions so far? I know this, if you've never done this before, you're probably like, wait, what? But I'm going to show you how to turn this stack back into a block now. All right, of a 3 by 3. Yes, Lori, I love that. The adding squares like you're closing a book. All right, let me get my machine fired up. And let me plug in my iron while I'm thinking about it. Because we will need to do some pressing part way through. All right, and I'm going to let y'all see a little bit more of my head since you don't need the... Okay, so we now have, remember, this is block 1, column 1, and block 1, column 2. And we're going to put these together, right sides together, just like usual, okay? And I've got my little leader and ender under here. All right, then block 2, column 1, block 2, column 2. I'm making sure I don't mess these numbers up because I don't want to confuse you guys. Now these, we have these points we're going to try to match. So I'm going to drop, do I have a pen handy? Yes. Line these guys up, sew them together. So this bit is a lot like chain piecing. We're just chain piecing in a very particular order, okay? All right, now we have, notice, see how I have my little chains here? Block 3, column 1, block 3, column 2, right sides together. Give me a holler in the comments if this is brand new for you or if you've done this before. This is not the first time I've taught this technique, so a lot of y'all have probably seen this before. But especially for those of you that it's brand new, I want to make sure that I'm answering all your questions. Now, in theory, we could do columns 1 and 2 for all 4 blocks right now without breaking any thread, okay? For the sake of reducing confusion, I'm going to break thread, all right? Because I want y'all to be able to follow what I'm doing. Now, where did I put my... I cleaned up the other day, and I don't know where anything is. I'm like, where are my pens? Where are my scissors? What? All right, so I'm going to take my little leader and ender off the end. I just use a piece of scrap paper because having 2 quilts going at once is more than my brain can do. All right, let's see. Oh, this is new for a lot of you guys. This makes me super happy. I love it. Okay, this is such a great, so Diane says that she learned it in a craftsy class, but it took a couple of times for it to sink in. That's part of why I wanted to teach it today, is because this is such a good quilt to practice on, because you have 4 blocks of 3 by 3 grids. And so you have basically 4 shots of kind of trying this out. So now see, I have a chain of 3 connected bits. So this is blocks 1 and 2 for columns 1 and 2. Or blocks 1. This is block 2 for columns 1 and 2. And blocks 3 for columns 1 and 2. All right. So now I have my stack here, and I just take the next block and sew it to the first pairing. All right. Into the block 1 row here. It does make assembly so much easier. So Jeannie, I found with rows that I got really frustrated trying to get everything to match. And the little bit of chain piecing connector helps everything stay lined up and helps me know how to press everything. So that's part of why I like to do this. But as always, if you prefer row assembly, you go, Rockstar. All right, let's see. Oh, interesting. So Lori says she does not love webbing entire quilts. It depends on the quilt for me. and how big the blocks are. If it's big blocks, then I will definitely web it. But yeah, if you got a lot of piddly blocks, or I'll web it in sections. So let's, for example, like if Bonnie Hunter has, especially if it's not on point, like good luck if it's on point. But if it's a straight setting, and let's say it's like 10 by 10 blocks, then I might web it in sections of 5 by 5 and then put those 4 sections together. All right, so see, now we have all of row 1 done, and we're going to take the next block from our stack and we add it to the block 2 row. So you just have to remember how many blocks are in your columns and you're good to go. Okay, yes, I'm going to move the laptop over today and we will talk about pressing when we get to that bit. Because it can be a little bit fiddly with everything connected, but I like that it makes it easy to make sure that I'm pressing seams in opposite directions. Because we talked a lot last week about planning ahead on our seams. All right. So now, row 3, last block in my stack. Now, there's a couple things you really want to keep in mind with a block like this, right? We want to make sure that our accent corner is always on the outside, and you want to make sure your star points are going the wrong way. So I have had that get me in trouble before, where I get my star points flipped around, and then I'm like, oh, that didn't work out, and you have to unpick it and whatnot. But on the whole, this keeps things. That's part of why, too, I will often lay this out on the design wall, because you can get everything laid out on the design wall, step back, make sure all the points are in the right place and any accent triangles, etc., and then gather your pieces. All right, so I'm at the end of that, so I'm going to grab my leader and ender again, bring this back over. Yes, you got to make sure the blocks don't get twisted. Yeah, so in this case, so Jeannie brings up a good point. Jeannie's like, oh, so you don't necessarily recommend doing all 36 units as a web. You could if you have a nice design wall. But if you're like, my design wall is full right now with 100 Days, 100 Blocks, because apparently that's just the quilt that goes on and on. So if you either don't have a design wall or your design wall is full or you prefer to work in blocks, I think working in a 3x3 grid is a very manageable size for this webbing technique. And then putting 4 blocks together is so quick and easy. We'll be doing that next week. So that's kind of my thoughts on that, Jeannie. Great question. But if you have a design wall and you want to put out all the units for all 4 blocks and work in long columns and long rows, you absolutely could do that. And you could have this quilt top done today. Like, it's that easy. All right, so I've sewed the last one. And when I hold this up, you can kind of see how the block is coming together. All right. But first, or design floor. I cannot design floor in this house. I have too many animals. That is a disaster. All right, I'm going to grab you guys. If you get motion sickness, close your eyes, please. I will warn you when it's safe to look. Oh, gosh, that is a heavy box. But I want to prop you all up a little bit. I want to give you a fighting chance of seeing what I'm doing down here. Okay. Turn on the light. Ha! That helps. Okay. So now I have each row I can spread out on my press board. Hey, this is a nice angle. Hi, guys. Yeah, pet free, kiddo free house. See, Jeannie, this is why I need travel to open up, because I am happy to bring some of my chaos to visit. All right. So I'm going to look ahead. I know that I will want, okay, this is the row that I need to consider. This middle row, I have points both ways. As a general rule, I like to kind of see which way the seams are trying to go and press them according to their inclination. There's just like no reason to create more of an uphill battle than we're like already going to have, okay? So when I look at these guys are leaning out a little bit. So I'm going to want these middle seams to press out, which means on my first row and my third row, I need those seams to go inward, okay? So I'm going to spread out row 1. And we're going to press our seams inward. So notice that I kind of gently stroke the iron over the seam to kind of guide it in the right direction. And then press it firmly. So see, kind of a gentle brush with the iron. And then pressing. Notice I'm not fooling with the rest of this. Now I do see a seam here that is not quite flat, so I'm going to hit that while I'm over here. But we're not, this is not a pair of pants, right? Now, because I'm starch obsessed, I know some of y'all tried starch this week at my recommendation and we're not fans. That's totally fine. I really like starch. So while the fabric is warm, we're going to hit it with a little bit of starch. And then same thing. I don't use steam, so I think that's part of why I like starch, is because it does add just a little bit of moisture to the quilt and then gives my fabric a little bit of structure. All right. We're going to let it cool a second. I can use my new clapper. I'm brand new to the Clapper Club. If y'all, again, if you are watching all of the comments and suggestions and tips that came in on that AccuQuilt reel over on Instagram this week, one of you rock stars, and I highlighted this in the post that I then shared across social last night. One of y'all was like, yeah, I use my son's train track pieces as a clapper. And I was like, that's genius. Like, actual genius. So if you don't have a clapper, but have a kiddo nearby with a set of train tracks, then that can be your impromptu clapper. Okay, so we pressed these in. So these guys need to go out, remember? So same thing. Notice I'm pulling on, not only say pull. I'm ever so gently tugging on my fabric, and that is only to make sure the seam opens all the way. We do not want to stretch or distort the fabric in any way. But I do want to make sure that it opens up all the way. I don't want any fabric kind of kept in that seam. So be careful that you're not tugging so hard that you're distorting anything. But we don't want any fabric hiding in that seam. If you press your seams and there's still fabric in them, okay, so like it creases over, but there's a little extra in there, that will come back when you quilt, okay? When you baste this later and you go to quilt it, as you are moving your quilt under your machine, all of that extra fabric will come out of nowhere. And you'll be going, why do I have extra fabric while I'm stitching? Why is it wrinkly? So take the moment to like gently ease those seams all the way open now so that you don't have to worry about it while you're quilting later, okay? Let's see. You can absolutely use Best Press instead of starch. The smell of Best Press bothers my allergies. Even the unscented. It's something about the Best Press. Go figure. But for some reason this doesn't, which also go figure. But yeah. The pressing vlog changed your life. Kayla, you've made my whole day. You've made my whole day. So this is a piece of plywood, 1/2-inch plywood. I have a whole blog on this. So if you go to stringandstory.com/blog, use the little search bar at the top and search pressing board, then I have instructions for this. But this is a 1/2-inch piece of plywood wrapped with cotton batting and then wrapped with a piece of quilting cotton. Okay, and it's stapled / taped on the back. So it has a tiny bit of give to it, but not a lot. All right. Let's see. You use flatter. Yes. Flatter is a great option as well. So any of the above. I just like something to give a little bit of body to my fabric and to encourage these seams to go all the way down. This one right here is being way stubborn. Can y'all see that? Now, here's the other thing that you should know about starch. Because starch is adding a little bit of moisture to your fabric, it's actually shrinking your fabric a little bit. So starch is also one of my favorite tricks if I am doing like the final press on a quilt in preparation for quilting it and realizing that there's some places where I have some extra fabric. So I will actually like hit it with the iron to warm up those fibers, hit it with the starch, let the starch soak in really good, then hit it with the iron again, and it will help shrink up little extra bits. So it is your friend for dealing with little wonky parts on your quilt top as well. I've been known to use it when I have wonky borders, the whole nine. All right, just smoothing these out. So I love my little Aliso mini iron. You may have noticed that they released their big iron in coordinating colors this week, which is super, super cool. But one of the things I love about the little iron too is I feel like it is hefty enough to give me a good press on my seams. But it's not so hefty that it like makes it overly easy to be dragging my fabric around and distorting it a whole bunch, you know? All right, same thing here, gentle tug. I'm just gonna ease this seam towards the direction I need it to go, which is towards the inside. Now I'm going to press all 4 blocks the same way. Okay, I'm going to press all 4 blocks the same way. Next week, when we assemble those blocks, we're going to talk about taking 2 of them and rotating them 90 degrees. So even though we follow the same pressing pattern, we can still get some seams to nest, okay? I want more. I love starch. I love it. Let me actually put that on there because that seam is being very bulky. So some of these places where we've got really bulky seams coming together, the starch, the clapper, the careful ironing, it is worth it for all of it to stay nice and flat and, you know, cooperative as we proceed, okay? All right. So now, last time you tried to press your web drill, your blocks are about to, so I've done this with things as small as like 3 inches. It takes a lot of patience though to be wiggling your iron in there. Again, this is something I love about having the mini iron is because having that smaller iron plate does make it easier to handle smaller blocks as well. But yeah, this is a particularly excellent example of having large blocks, so it's easy to see what I'm doing, etc. Okay, so you can start to see how this is coming together. So I'm going to move you guys back over to the table. And we're going to do the final 2 seams of these blocks. All right. If you get motion sickness, close your eyes. All right. Y'all are still now. I still need to, oh, I don't actually need to adjust the screen. How very handy. Okay. So now we have some seams to match. So fold, it doesn't really matter which column you do first, but fold these together. Right, go ahead and if you've got strings that are starting to gather themselves on the back, go ahead and pluck those off. All right, and where these seams come together, we're going to nest them. Because remember, we press them opposite directions so they nest neatly. And then you can use a wonder clip or a pin. If you use a wonder clip, just clip it across both. If you use a pin, notice how I put this at a slight diagonal. So it actually hits both sides of that seam. It doesn't have to be a really steep diagonal, just something to really hold it steady. And then I'm going to drop a pin right here as well, where these points come together for the star. Okay. Line up my ends, line up my edges. And I often fiddle with my quilt blocks and bits as I'm stitching just to make sure everything stays lined up. Make sure I'm catching everything. If y'all have been sewing with me for any length of time, you know there's always a little bit of wonkiness in what I'm doing. It just is what it is. You know, I do everything a little bit organically, you know? So I just check it as I go, make sure I'm not getting too crazy over here. Now, if you're working with smaller blocks, you might zip right across this real quick. But this is the other part of working with large blocks, is we need to take it a step at a time. Say hi to your mom, Francie Joe. All right. Let me peek at my points before I turn this around. Hey, we did all right. All right. So there's row 1 and row 2. So now we're going to repeat for the last one. Now, keep in mind too, I'm teaching as I do this. Putting together your rows or your blocks and rows and all of these bits is not going to take the same amount of time. You will zip right through this, but I am articulating every last piece of this for you guys. So it just always takes a little bit longer that way. But I like to add that little caveat in there in case you're watching and going, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. No, some of you guys are piecing along with me and you're already done. You're like, yeah, we already got this together. I am spraying the backs of the blocks as a general rule. I don't have, oh my gosh, it is snowing in Tulsa. Ah, Sue, I hope you start cutting today. That would be delightful. So I do spray the backs of the blocks. I do not necessarily have an inherent opposition to spraying the fronts of the blocks, but keep in mind that like anytime you're adding moisture to fabric, you run the risk of bleeding, right? So just, you know, tuck that in the back of your mind. Be a little bit more careful if you think your fabrics are at risk of bleeding. I've not had any bleeding issues with my Paintbrush Studio solids, so it's honestly not something I'm real worried about. Yeah, Sue, from what I saw on Facebook, it looks like that snow is your fault since you went and got your tires changed, ma'am. All right, so I get to the end of that and grab this leader and ender again. All right, let me peek at my points. Aha! Look at that. Did we get all these points? Look at that. Just like that, folks. So this is the cream colorway. You guys have seen the navy colorway. Let's see. Diane says, I've webbed smaller blocks and even a quilt with stashing and little squares at the stashing intersections. Yes, Diane, I love webbing all the things. Oh, that's a good tip about Wonder Clips, Kirsten. When I crossed over the necessity, my accuracy was better having a clip before and after. That is good to know. Excellent tip. All right, I'm going to move you guys again, so close your eyes if you get motion sickness. Whoop. All right. So now we have these here seams that we need to decide what to do with. Now, because these are going in So these are at the 1/3 marks and they are going in. I am going to press these out, okay? And what that will allow me to do is turn my blocks 90 degrees, like alternate, so that my seams can nest later, okay? Let me make sure I've thought that through correctly. Yes, okay. If anyone thinks I've done that math wrong, holler at me now before we do this. But that's the kind of thinking ahead that I want us doing is like, okay, what in my next step of construction, what needs to be true? So notice I'm just kind of glazing my iron over this seam. I'm moving the iron. There's not a lot of pressure on the iron, okay? I'm just kind of glazing it over and nudging the seam the direction I want it to go. This next pass, I've got a little bit more pressure. And I'm just making sure that there's not any extra ease hiding in my seam. All right, now that fabric's all nice and heated up. Nice generous spritz of starch. Let's see. You absolutely could press them open, Marie. It will just mean that you'll need to be very, very careful about pinning them when you put them together later. I like to nest my seams whenever I can. So that's part of my decision here. Yeah, great question. So, Dawn, that's what I was saying is like, as a general rule, I am hitting the back of my fabric with starch, not the front, because I'm ironing from the back. But if I'm overall trying to smooth something out, sometimes I will flip it over and hit it with starch again on the front. You just want to be mindful of the risk of any bleeding. Another thing to keep in mind, let's see, was it Marie that was asking me? Let me make sure. Yes, Marie. For pressing them open, some of these places where bulky bits are coming together, it is going to be hard to press them open because they're just not going to get real flat because they are bulky. And I would rather just pick which direction that bulk is going, if that makes sense. So I'm actually going to use my clapper here and here. Just going to hit some of these bulky spots. All right, so hopefully I'm going to show you guys so far. Look how flat and neat this is on the back so far. So those of you who have been stitching with me for a minute, I am very capable of making the backs of my quilts very neat. I don't always take the time. Don't always take the time to do it this well, but this is, if we're going to do it right the first time, this is how we should be doing it, okay? Let's see. Sue said, just looked at my notes on the pattern, told myself I was doing it all from my stash. Hilarious. First thing I did was shop for more fabric. Sue, I love it. I love it. Jeannie says, I pressed a few of the seams to see if they would line up better. Okay, so you like them better nested. That's good feedback. Thank you for that. All right, same thing here. First, gentle kind of glaze of a pass with the iron. There's not a lot of pressure on it, so I'm not going to be distorting anything. Ooh, this unit needs an extra little press. Let us take a moment here. Good grief. I like this clapper, guys. Like I said, I'm brand new to the clapper, but I think I'm sold. Shop for fabric for 2 versions. I love it. It's such a fun quilt because it comes together really fast, but it's got enough detail to be visually interesting. I know I'm biased because I wrote the pattern, but what can I say? All right, second pass, a little bit more pressure. Notice I'm still not ironing. I'm not dragging this fabric around. I'm just guiding it the direction I want it to go. All right, we're going to let this starch sink in. And you'll notice I'm not staying strictly on this one seam. I'm kind of manicuring the whole back of my quilt as I'm going here. Because the more I do with it now, the less I'm going to have to like redo with it later before I quilt it, right? Well, in theory, I will be moving before I quilt this, so it's going to be all kinds of wrinkles. But y'all get the idea. See, Rebecca says I'm going to be playing catch up. I procrastinate too much. Hey, Rebecca, this is a fast quilt. I made my navy version of this quilt. I made the weekend I refilmed Free Motion Quilting Academy, like in little bits of time between shots. So that should tell you something about like how quickly you can sit down and focus and get it done. All right. Just like that, my loves. One gorgeous Star Bright quilt block. All right, any questions? We spent almost 45 minutes on one block. I do not think it's going to take even half that long when you are sewing at home, but I wanted to show you step by step this webbing and pressing process. Let's see. I had to get coordinating fabric. I love it. Jean, that's a great question. So for those of you who are curious about our move, so we close on the new townhouse mid-May. We will close on this house the following week. So we'll have a week to move, which will be really nice. Yeah, I'm very excited. And yes, we will be packing and moving as Free Motion Quilting Academy is open for enrollment. So like, it's just going to be a party up in here. It also means that this will be like the one room that stays sort of intact until the very end. Yes. Susan, welcome. I'm so thrilled that you are new. So we probably do about one good quilt along a year. I do finish alongs about once a year as well. So that's something that is on the table potentially for this fall, is actually finishing up some whips, doing some quilts together. So yeah, but we always have some kind of event going on. There's always something. And I'm loving this YouTube platform. So this is brand new that we're hosting on YouTube to make it easier to bring our Instagram and our Facebook folks together. And now that I'm actually learning how to use YouTube Live, I think it's working really well. Yeah, love it. You're a nester too. Yep. Love it. You're in the Free Motion Quilting Academy class. Perfect. Yeah, as you know, there's always something going on with the Academy. And Susan, if you're in the Academy right now, you'll be hearing about the Guild starting next week. And that's the ongoing membership for students in the Academy after their kind of first cohort through. So all the exciting things. Okay, guys, any closing questions? I'm going to wrap this up. Marie, yes. So follow up on that. We thought we were going to keep this house. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all last week. Ultimately, the decision was just the market is too good. It is such a seller's market right now that it makes more sense to sell it now than to wait and try to figure out how to do that later. So it means the string and store is going to be a little bit cozy in the basement of the townhouse for a bit, but that's okay. We'll work it all out. I've got some plans about that too. So yes, thank you for asking that follow-up question because that has changed a couple of times, Marie. Wonderful. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today for week 3 of the Star Bright Quilt Along. If you are just now stumbling on us and you want to jump in, you can go to stringandstory.com/Star Bright Quilt Along to get your copy of the Winter Hexagon Pattern Bundle. And also, I don't have one handy. If you choose to use the same colors I did, then you can get the Quilting Rockstar Thread Collection as well, which is available in my shop right now. So next week, guys, we will be back here, same time, same place. I'll be showing you how to put these blocks together. We'll be talking about rotating the blocks to nest all of those seams. And then after that, we're going to have a very special, fun, and free challenge. I'll be giving you all the details next week about quilting plans and deciding how we're going to quilt this big old beauty. So in the meanwhile, keep making progress on piecing your blocks. Be sure to pop over to the String and Story blog for some pressing tips, some piecing and trimming tips, as well as the blog that I just published today is all about needles and thread for free motion quilting. So to go ahead and start thinking ahead for that quilting process. Thank you so much for being here with me. It's been an absolutely lovely morning, and I'll see you soon.